From parts unknown, I'm Mr. Hartgrave, and this is my review of All Out 2023. And this is going to be a difficult one because I had a challenge getting enthusiastic about this pay-per-view after all of the drama that went down between CM Punk and AEW Wrestling that honestly put a lot of confusion around this pay-per-view and just a lot of internal kind of debate with myself. Like, why am I... whose side am I on? You know, what enjoyment can I find from this? And the way I had to move forward with this, just to give you some color on all of this, because I feel like this pay-per-view, it's going to be really hard for me to give it a unbiased review. It was hard for me to be unbiased while I watched it. There was this whole kind of dark cloud of CM Punk hanging over it. Full disclosure, I mean, I'm not the biggest CM Punk fan on the planet. I like CM Punk. I don't hate him. I love AEW wrestling. So the way I had to move forward with this is, and after kind of looking at all of the known information about the CM Punk scandal, whatever you want to call it, situation that developed, I told myself that this pay-per-view was not some kind of alternate timeline. We are pretty much, from my understanding, watching the pay-per-view that we were going to get, more or less, CM Punk or no CM Punk. So I believe the question I put forward on the thumbnail and on the title of this is what would happen if CM Punk wasn't fired? And what I came to the conclusion of before I watched this pay-per-view and even after watching the pay-per-view, and I'll give you my thoughts as I go through match by match, but overall, I feel that this was the pay-per-view we were pretty much going to get, and I think that's what led towards CM Punk acting the way he did before the pay-per-view. I think that he was dissatisfied with the way his storylines were going to play out, with what he was able to do, much like Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes wasn't happy with what he was doing in AEW, and I feel like CM Punk was not happy. Whatever he wanted to do when he came back, I don't feel that he was achieving. The one thing I would like to point out in particular that he wasn't getting was a championship angle with MJF. I feel that when Punk came back, he wanted to headline Wembley. If we know CM Punk, if we watch, if we listen, we know that he thinks the top guys should be built against each other. We know he feels that he is a top guy. Whether he is or isn't, you can let me know down in the comments below. That is your opinion. But I think it's safe to say that Punk's opinion is that he is a top guy in the company. So when he is opening the show at Wembley and not closing the show, when I don't feel he was going to get the main event of All Out, I could be wrong. Maybe he was set to main event All Out. But I just don't think that he was happy with what his trajectory was looking like for the next few months and what he was doing for the last few months. I don't feel that he was happy about it, and that's why the things happened that happened. That's why he behaved as poorly as he did. Was he right? Was he wrong? It doesn't matter. But I feel the mindset, for me to understand that, helped me get into this pay-per-view. And I'm going to tell you where I think CM Punk would have fit in this. And you let me know down in the comments what you think. It is all speculation. I feel like this is going to be a really fun pay-per-view to rewatch in the future when we know what would have happened, when we know more about what did happen, the behind-the-scenes information. I feel that's going to be very interesting to revisit, and I hope this channel lasts long enough for me to do that. If you like what you see here on this channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, share these videos with a friend, ring the bell. It's kind of hard for me to get views over here right now due to the size of the channel, but I do enjoy doing these review videos and talking to you just about AEW and not so much AEW Fight Forever, but we'll also have a lot of fight. Don't worry, guys, if you're watching this, where's the Fight Forever? That'll be on this channel as well. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the first match. All right, first match was Better Than You, Baby versus the Dark Order. Now, man, this is weird. I feel like this is something that would agitate a character like CM Punk as well, who has gone on record saying that, the main event should be against the two top guys. Who are the two top guys? Well, CM Punk and MJF, right? I mean, I was saying it for months before CM Punk even came back. What's the main event going to be at Wembley? Well, it's going to be MJF and CM Punk. That didn't happen. It was CM Punk it was MJF and Adam Cole. I don't know. Politics, man. I feel like there's a lot. I don't think you can blame any one person. You can't just like blame the Young Bucks. You can't just like blame MJF. I think there's a lot of people who have their hands on creative in AEW and have the sway of Tony Khan, including Tony Khan himself, can do whatever he wants. That's why these things happen. So why is MJF and Adam Cole opening the show against Dark Order? I don't know. It's a very standard match. It's not as thrilling. It's not as crowd pleasing as the opening to All In. I think overall, like I might have to compare this show a lot to All. It's hard not to compare this show to All In, which was such a crowd pleaser, such a spectacle. We're not getting that with All Out. In fact, it doesn't. I don't want to say it feels like an episode of Dynamite because it doesn't. It feels better than that. It definitely has pay-per-view vibes, but almost like AEW pay-per-view vibes of 2019, which isn't altogether bad. Actually, I'd maybe say 2020. Well, before CM Punk, it has AEW pay-per-view vibes, not the best ones, kind of the average ones from early on in the company's career, for better or for worse. Anyways, not to harp on it too much, but this is a pretty, there's a little bit of drama here where MJF plays up his neck injury and actually leaves the match. Now, I feel that this would have been a better match if you had inversed that. If it was Adam Cole who had been injured and MJF who stayed in the ring, that would have made this a more engaging match to me. Adam Cole is not the one that, I really typically root for, so having him carry the match instead of MJF was kind of a downer in my opinion. So eventually MJF returns. The match improves, I feel, at that point. A double kangaroo kick is hit. A double clothesline is hit. And the match is over. Now, the most interesting part of this match is, of course, the end of this match where, big surprise, actually is a big surprise, Samoa Joe comes out to beat up MJF. I guess setting up a program between Samoa Joe and MJF for the World Championship. Now, this is where I feel CM Punk should have been involved. And I feel like this is too late. I feel this should have happened before this pay-per-view, and then the main event of this pay-per-view should have been MJF versus CM Punk. Or perhaps this could have happened earlier. Maybe this would have happened if Better Than You Baby didn't become like the surprise hit of the summer, right? We don't know. We might not know for years. But I really do feel in my heart of hearts that this would have not been Samoa Joe had CM Punk not had a huge fallout and been fired from the company. This is exactly where I feel that he would have been. Now, would he been in another match this night? Probably, and I'll let you know where that might have happened as well. But I really feel like Samoa Joe is a stand-in for CM Punk here. I feel that was the feud that has been bubbling that I've wanted to see. I've wanted to see the real world champion versus MJF ever since that angle was dropped. And MJF has never acknowledged it. So this would be a good way to force him to acknowledge it, would be to do it in this kind of run-in situation. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't feel that it makes any sense to have Samoa Joe do this. I know a lot of people are like curious about that. They're like, oh, that's cool. But what sense does it make booking wise to have the loser coming out of All In to then be able to run a program with the champion at All Out? That makes no sense. It's confusing, quite honestly, but it's fine. Samoa Joe is cool. So is MJF. I'm sure that it's going to work out in the end. I feel like everything MJF touches turns to gold anyways, so I'm not upset about it, but I do very much feel that this is where CM Punk would be if he had not been fired. All right, and that leads right into the match with Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor. I felt that this was a real snooze fest. It ends to a submission. It's over very fast. A lot of this pay-per-view actually feels like a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. I know, let me know if you feel that way, but this actually gives off, and I love the Ring of Honor pay-per-views. I think they're very good. They're very different from the AEW pay-per-views. They're more focused on wrestling, which is what this all is. There's really not a lot of story here for various reasons. But yeah, this match between Samoa Joe and Shane Taylor, that's maybe on me that I didn't have a lot of feelings about Shane Taylor going into this. I'm actually starting to watch Ring of Honor now, but maybe I'll get there. Once again, I'd like to rewatch this one when I do have those feelings about Shane Taylor, but even then, he loses. A lot of the matches end in kind of a downer. I know in the last match, MJF and Adam Cole did win. I don't know if I mentioned that. Let me mention it now. They did win. But that's a feel-good moment, except at the end, MJF is getting beat up by Samoa Joe, and the crowd definitely didn't like to see that. The crowd probably would have liked to have seen Shane Taylor win more than Samoa Joe, although they like Samoa Joe a lot. Speaking of downers, this leads right into Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin. Now, I did not feel this one to be a bad match. This was actually my match of the night. I loved this match more than anything else. This match actually had me more excited than anything else. I was invested in this. Luchasaurus has never looked better in an AEW ring than he has looked in here. He looks like a total monster. The way Darby was working with Luchasaurus was exactly the way you need to work with Luchasaurus to make him read as this kind of larger than life, which he is, dinosaur, destroyer of wrestlers that he could be. The way Darby Allin throws himself at Luchasaurus and gets bounced off. The selling here from Darby Allin is ridiculously good, if not entirely authentic. Some really hardcore spots. Darby's bleeding. And yes, Luchasaurus does win this match, which is a huge upset. Everyone's very angry about that. He actually wins with multiple tombstone pile drivers onto Darby Allin, which look incredibly safe, but also, if you want to buy into the reality of it, incredibly devastating. And yeah, where do I think this goes from here? I honestly think that this is a really good way to bring back Jungle Boy at some point. I was saying it before the whole disaster with Jungle Boy and CM Punk. We were going to see Luchasaurus team back up with Jungle Boy. I think you can do that here. Put them against FTR. Have FTR win. And just kind of make everybody feel good because FTR, CM Punk's boys. And that would be kind of a nice little bone to throw all the disappointed CM Punk fans. Maybe do it next year at All Out in Chicago. If you're going to keep running stuff in Chicago, maybe throw them a bone because, man, what happens to FTR? It's not going to be good for Chicago later on. I'm telling you that. I think you can also run Luchasaurus and Christian Cage versus Darby Allin and Nick Wayne. I think that's the obvious thing to do now, especially if you want to keep Jack Perry off of TV for a little bit and let that all cool down. All right, this moves into Powerhouse Hobbs and Miro. I found that I didn't like this match. I didn't care for this. I'm not a big fan of the big men slapping meat, but boy, Chicago was. In fact, the meat chants I thought were really distracting. Let's just say that. Maybe I would have enjoyed it if I was there in person, but as someone watching on the couch, I was like, all right, guys, apparently you're really into meat. Lot of all kinds of meat chants. Any wrestling chant that you can think of, they've just added meat to it. In fact, at some points, they're just chanting meat as they hit each other. I don't know. I found the whole thing kind of irritating. And Miro takes the win here, which is what I suspected would happen. It just was kind of dumb. It felt like maybe something you'd see in another wrestling company. I'm not going to pick on him too much. But and then it really got dumb at the end when Miro's wife came out. I know a lot of people are really into that, but I just thought the whole thing was stupid. I'm probably going to be, crucified on the internet for saying that, but I'm going to go on record. This match was dumb. The crowd response was dumb. I really hope the meat chants don't become a thing that we can't escape for years. All right, next up, Chris Statlander versus Ruby Soho. This was a great match. And I want to give this match like a high star rating. I would easily give it a 3.5 out of 5. Kind of odd that Ruby Soho came out to Rancid. We don't have CM Punk, but we do have Rancid music playing. And it's weird for that to play when Ruby comes out as a heel. Oh, by the way, I haven't mentioned it now, but I did like the set design. The set design of All Out is very cool. They had multiple vertical screens laid out and a big wide screen up at the top. And I don't know, it created a very cool effect. I thought all the entrances looked really good, although there were no special entrances that I can remember. There's nothing really extravagant, nothing really different that we haven't seen before. A couple of really cool entrances, but entrances in general are kind of standard. And maybe that's what gives this kind of more of a Ring of Honor feel and not really an AEW pay-per-view feel. Nothing really feels elevated here. Everyone's coming out to their standard kind of stuff. And The only difference is that it looks kind of cool on this new screen setup that we haven't seen, this configuration. I kind of like the screen, blank, screen kind of look, like a caged look. Some of it looks really cool. All right, enough about that. When Statlander comes out, I guess this is one of the few special things that happens when Statlander comes out. She actually gives a Zoolander reference. She does a blue steel pose. Zoolander fans, let me know down in the comments if you appreciate that. I really liked crazy Ruby Soho in this. She was very unhinged. She was yelling that it was her title. It was her turn. That was pretty great. Also, another overall note about this pay-per-view, I really liked JR on commentary. I know a lot of people don't like JR on commentary. I love him. The more random, the better. JR here during this match, just saying random non sequiturs like she was raised on a farm. I don't know why that matters, but it cracked me up. During the end of the match, Toni Storm sabotages Ruby Soho, taking the spray can out of her hand, setting up a feud with the Outsiders. Statlander wins due to that interference by Toni Storm. So, yeah, where's that going? Toni Storm is going to go after Ruby Soho. Toni Storm's going to go after Saraya. Who's she going to team up with? I'm really invested in the Toni Storm storyline. I thought this was a very solid women's match. Also a highlight of the night, and it's really cool to see for women's wrestling in AEW. All right, next up, we have Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks. Now, right up top, I do know that the speculation was that this was CM Punk's match. However, I'm not really 100% certain on that. I feel like the Ricky Starks and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat feud was kind of always leading here. What with the Dragon contract signing, that feels really lucky to have that kind of in your lap if you fired CM Punk and need to replace him for this pay-per-view. Well, how fortunate that you have that little angle you can play out. I kind of believe that that angle was going to be there the whole time and that this was always going to be Daniel Bryanson's return. And maybe that's the kind of thing that might anger a CM Punk to the point where he quits, gets fired, whatever the hell happened. I don't know. And I was also blown away that this was not the main event. Like, how are you going to top this? You have an incredibly violent strap match and you're going to, somehow carry on after that. But, it is what it is. This might have been a better ending to the pay-per-view. After watching the full pay-per-view, I do feel that this should have been the end of the pay-per-view. Maybe if it would have been CM Punk in this spot, it would have been the end of the pay-per-view. I don't know. Still, the crowd reaction on Ricky Starks is very weird. We're still cheering for Ricky Starks, even after he basically wanted to whip an old man with a strap. Like, are we not paying attention to this storyline? But I didn't care anymore. I don't think Ricky Starks was acting crazy enough for me to believe this storyline to begin with. For me to believe that Ricky Starks wanted to challenge an old man to a strap match, an incredibly violent strap match, Ricky Starks would have to be acting like a Christian Cage, like someone who is unhinged and disassociative from reality, like Toni Storm. Ricky Starks, however, seems to be fully capable, and he is totally in check with what's going on and hasn't really changed his character to the point where he's the kind of unhinged maniac that would want to beat a wrestling legend, an 80-year-old wrestling legend, with a strap. So I didn't get it. It's not CM Punk. Maybe if this was CM Punk, it would have been better. I kept thinking, if this was CM Punk, would I be more invested? And the answer was no. I wouldn't have been. I don't think this would have been a better match with CM Punk in it. I think both men do admirably well here. There's a lot of bleeding. There's a lot of violence. Ricky Starks is basically murdered here. He is choked to death by Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson wins. And I don't know. The crowd definitely likes to see Bryan Danielson comes back. They definitely like to see him win. So this really should have been the end of the pay-per-view. It is not, though. We still have matches to go. So after this, we go into what I feel is the audience is dead at this point. They just watched a strap match. So I don't feel like they were really there for this. I was kind of checked out as well. This is a very Ring of Honor match as well, feeding into that whole feeling I had where this is a very Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Eddie Kingston and Shibata versus Claudio and Yuta. Shibata comes off like an absolute badass during this match, at one point putting both Claudio and Yuta, both of them into a submission at the same time, using both halves of his body. That was kind of an amazing spot. There was a sudden win from Claudio delivering an uppercut to Eddie. The match is over. Claudio wins. No one is happy. Everyone wanted to see Eddie win. Of course, we always want to see Eddie win. Another downer into Omega versus Takeshita. Now, this was my match of the night that I was looking forward to, and it did deliver. I really enjoyed Kenny Omega's intro. This was the perfect place to put in a North Carolina reference, and they did it. Of course, if you don't know the North Carolina lore, that stems from the way that Michael Jordan was introduced. So doing that in the house that Michael Jordan built with the Chicago Bulls was extra cool to see that North Carolina reference. I also like the DDT tights on Kenny Omega that were alluding back to his beginnings in professional wrestling in Japan's DDT wrestling. So that was very cool. Kenny is landing on his head in this match a lot, but apparently that doesn't bother Kenny Omega because he doesn't have like a neck like a normal human. I guess Kenny Omega can just land on his neck and it doesn't affect him. He's gone on record with that, so I have to believe that that's not a matter. This is definitely a 4 out of 5 star match, if not a 5-star match. We have insane, cleaner Kenny Omega in this match. It's really cool that Kenny Omega has been able to recover to the point where we are seeing a New Japan style Kenny in AEW wrestling. We really hadn't seen it until that match with Ospreay, and we get him again here for Takeshita. He does a You Can't Escape spot on the outside, backflipping off the railing this time instead of the corner post. I'd never seen him do that. That was incredible. This is by hands down the best Takeshita match that there's ever been and maybe ever will be. He does an avalanche Blue Thunder bomb off the top. Takeshita does end up winning with the help of a screwdriver planted there by Don Callis. I would say this would be a 5-star match if not for the finish. The finish was really kind of crappy, utilizing the screwdriver and some cheating there. It would have felt good to see a clean victory from Takeshita on Omega, but, a cheating victory, I guess, is maybe the only kind of victory you're going to get, at least at this point in Takeshita's career. I would definitely like to see a rematch here between Takeshita and Omega. I don't think this business is done yet. Perhaps maybe something in a cage, something where, we've tried cages before to keep Don Callis out, and that doesn't do it. Maybe at the top of a building with Don Callis buried in the building basement below. I don't know what you'd have to do to keep Don Callis away from interfering with a match like this. But I don't know. Disappointing ending, but amazing match. This is another one of those matches that really had me confused. Why are the Young Bucks involved in this? And now this is another thing where I feel like what this match should have been, what this match might have been at some point, would be FTR and CM Punk versus Young Bucks and Hangman Page. That is the match this should have been. This should have been the main event of All Out 2023 by all rights. Should have been FTR and CM Punk versus the Young Bucks and Hangman Page. What we have here makes no sense, has no build, and doesn't exist for any other reason than to put over Bullet Club Gold, which is what it does. Spoilers, Bullet Club Gold wins. Now, this is the most contested match with the audience. The audience hates the Young Bucks, but also loves the Young Bucks. If the Young Bucks do any kind of spot, the crowd cheers. But however, every time the Young Bucks are tagged in, or whenever the Young Bucks are taunting the audience is booing and chanting CM Punk. So the audience is confused. I'm confused. Ultimately, it's an unhappy ending for Chicago. They do not enjoy the fact that Bullet Club wins. I feel the only reason why this match would exist is to make sure that Bullet Club looks like a viable threat going forward. So for me, the booking makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for the live audience. It doesn't make sense in the fact, why are the Young Bucks teaming with FTR? I know they did some spots on TV to set this up. I watched them. I just don't think it makes any sense. And in an alternate world, it absolutely would have played out with FTR and CM Punk winning over the Young Bucks and Hangman Adam Page. That is very much the timeline that we should have been in, but that is not the timeline that we exist in, apparently. All right, and that leads us to Orange Cassidy versus Moxley. And, wow, speaking of alternate timelines, so I believe it's 100% a fact that Orange Cassidy was supposed to drop the belt to Pac at Wembley. It would have been a really good feel-good moment, and that did not happen. It's what they've been setting Orange Cassidy up to do. Now, I said going into this that there was no way on God's green earth that Orange Cassidy was going to win this match, and I was absolutely correct. Jon Moxley has to win this match because if he can't beat a injured Orange Cassidy, then who the hell would he beat? It would make Orange Cassidy almost invincible at full health, and I just don't think we're prepared to do that going forward. So, of course, Jon Moxley wins. This is a very violent match. Most of that violence on Orange Cassidy. In fact, we have one guy, very, very lonely man, chanting ECW during this match, but he was accurate. It's pretty gross. It is pretty ECW style. It's a great Orange Cassidy match, but it's a very mid-tier Jon Moxley match. At the end of the match, Jon Moxley basically murders Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy lay in a pool of his own blood as Jon Moxley leaves the ring. Now, this is the end of the pay-per-view. This is how it ends. Orange Cassidy's dead in the ring. Now, I do like at the end of a match where we hold until the audience can kind of cheer the wrestler that has lost. That feels very NXT, very old school black and gold NXT. And I really do like those endings. But as the ending of a pay-per-view, it kind of sucks. I'm unhappy. I didn't like to see Orange Cassidy be brutalized like this. Much like I said with the Wembley review, when you take these kind of feel-good characters like the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, and you brutalize them beyond the point of recognition, and you take them to a place where they are as violent as the Blackpool Combat Club, you kind of loses the charm of what you set up with these characters, and it kind of just takes away the thing that makes them what they are. So, I don't know. This does not seem like the proper end of this pay-per-view, but I do feel that this is the pay-per-view that we were going to get, for better or for worse, and I feel that this is what kind of led to CM Punk acting out the way he did. From what I know about CM Punk's philosophies about booking, a lot of this stuff in this pay-per-view goes against those philosophies, and I feel if he was so creatively invested in this show, in Collision, into all of the angles that led up to this, this would have been a very disappointing outcome. Even if he was involved in it in some kind of, main event way, I don't feel that it would be happening within the vision that he had for AEW. Of course, now we will not see that vision come to fruition in any way, shape, or form, but I don't think we are going to get it regardless. So all of you CM Punk fans out there, anyone who agrees with him, I don't think we're ever going to see that AEW, and you can let me know whether that is, whether you feel that's a good or bad thing down in the comments down below. Also, let me know what you think about this pay-per-view. Change my mind. I didn't think it was that great. The only match I really enjoyed, the only one I would rewatch, would be Darby Allin versus Luchasaurus. I thought that was incredible. I think Darby Allin is one of the #1 talents in the company, and I'm looking forward to one day seeing a championship belt on him. All right, there's a lot of other good videos on this channel, so make sure you check them out. And grave diggers, keep digging.